one of the convictions that emerged as I worked in detail on it was that the gospel had mostly a royal shape. That it's about the Christ. It's about that term, the Christ, isn't an empty signifier. We're so used to hearing it, we kind of just read right past it, right? And we just kind of see it as an alternative way of saying Jesus. But that's not actually correct. Scholars who have really studied the term Christ would identify it as an honorific term. And so, like honorifics in our society, some honorifics might be something like a doctor. Like on the one hand, like there are a variety of technical degrees, like you could have a PhD or an MD or whatever it might be, and you've accomplished that degree. But if someone chooses to refer to you as Dr. So-and-so, that's their way of honoring your accomplishment, right? It's an honorific. And so there were similar kinds of things in Jesus's world. And so, yeah, one example would be Judas Maccabee, was called the Hammerer. This became a title, right? The Maccabee actually means that. It means the Hammerer. And similarly, Caesar Augustus, whenever he came to be venerated, right, by the title, his real name is Octavian, but by the title Augustus, that's actually an honorific, the Augustus part. We just use it today and we almost think of it as his name. A similar thing has happened with Jesus Christ, right? We tend to think of Christ as just an alternative way of saying Jesus. But when we really dive into it, we find that it's actually a royal term, and that it means the Jewish king who would arise, in connection with the promises of David, and who would have such an enormous importance that the nations would, in one way or another, either stream to him, or he would lead them through his law, or there would be a variety of visions of this in the Old Testament. But it's also an honorific title. So coming to recognize, for instance, that Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, 3-5, when he defines the gospel, right, it's not about Jesus's death for us, it's about the Christ's. Okay, now Jesus is the Christ, but we have to pay attention to that specific use of language. So recognizing that the gospel was royal, that really kind of brought together the two things I was thinking about, like faith as allegiance, and on the other hand, what does it mean to respond to the gospel then? It means to give loyalty to a king. So it was really as those two kind of pieces of data sort of sparked together, that the full-blown thesis of kind of gospel allegiance or a royal allegiance model came to fruition. And then, of course, I had to look at a lot of evidence to see, is this true? Is this a valid way of I had to look at a lot of linguistic data. So, yes, anyway, that's the basic.